You've got to grasp what's taking place around you now that they've come to the realization that they can no longer contain you in that container. That the content of your character is overflowing the container. The container being the physical body or hat. And the content of you is overflowing. Like it says, thy cup runneth over. You're overflowing now with information. You got questions that don't even meet up to the knowledge that he has put out yet. You're ahead of him in time and space. You want to know what happens when I die. Do I die? What is death? Am I going to go to heaven? Is there heaven? Do I go? Is it here? Is it there? And they can't answer these things for you. So not only is it happening in the church, but it's also happening on the college campuses. And it's also happening in the high schools. And now the junior high school kids are coming in with questions. So there's a worldwide acknowledgement that it's not out front in knowledge. Because they have too many things they can't answer. You follow? So it's very difficult for the sacred societies, Freemasons, Shriners, Knights of Columbus, Alhambra, which all go into the Illuminati, to continue to propagate this hypocritical light concept without giving answers. Because people have walked across the arch or the threshold of a past master and still know nothing. They've traveled through the degrees, traveled from west to east and east to west, and still know nothing. But they're waiting with each last Thursday in the month at the lodge, thinking that this is the time we're going to learn that secret. Then they spend 35 to 50 of their years waiting and don't hear no secret. Because they don't have any secrets. There's nothing to give them. So the esoteric world, the secret societies failed. You follow that? And they forced the kids to disrespect God by taking a kid who's suspected as being a criminal, putting him on a stand, and then putting a Bible under his hand and expect the same kid who's suspected as being a criminal to tell the truth. Just by putting the Bible there is blasphemy. By putting it in the front of a criminal and say, put your hand on this Bible. You expect them to tell the truth when they're there because they did something wrong. You see what I'm saying? Their system is over. The rule of the devil, and the devil has been ruling this world for 6,000 years. His rule is over. Now what people would love to feel is that tomorrow we'll get up and there won't be no devil. No. You know why? Because the reason why your container is overflowing is because you have diluted your contents with the devil's character. We are keeping the devil powerful. We have taken him into us. And he lives in us, in our desires to be other than ourselves. You hear me? In us wanting to live in his image and after his likeness, and not in the image of the likeness of the what? No. I breathed into man a breath of life, and man became a living. You don't want to be a soul. You want to be a body. You want to adorn the body. In other words, you want to take the container or the vessel called the body, and you want to satisfy it, decorate it, feed it. But the contents in the container has already been tilted or tinted with shaitan or Satan or Abbas or any name that you want to call, Diabolus, Bragos, all the Greek, whatever name you use. This malicious being is now moving in me and you and coerces us to do his bidding. He gets us to make fun of our own, to laugh at people, to steal. He gets us to smoke cigarettes and poison our body, to damage the vessel. And when one of us damages the content, all of us are damaged. Because the content is the same, even if the vessel takes on different shapes. All of the containers here have different shapes. All y'all look different. But the content in the container of all of us, soul, essence, God is the same. So when one soul is damaged, all souls are damaged. That's why he asked him, are you your brother's keeper? And he said, I'm not my brother's keeper. When in fact, I am my brother's keeper. Because as my brother falls, I fall. Humanity falls. Let me tell you something, just to jump away from it. Animals on the planet reach a certain point where they become what they call extinct. Correct? Now, that means that that animal has lived the full potential or lived the utmost of its life. Its existence has now expired, and nature, it doesn't want it to breathe anymore. And I say that, I don't mean that as simply as it sounds. When I say nature doesn't want that animal to breathe that's now extinct, like the bald eagle, it doesn't want that animal that takes in oxygen and gives off a poison substance. That animal's physical composition and what comes out of it should not exist anymore, because it'll infringe upon other animals in the chain of life. Try to bear with me what I'm saying. All right? If an animal is supposed to disappear, it's because God wants that animal to disappear. And if man stepped in and prolonged the life of that animal, man is taking the ecology and making it imbalanced. Because that animal is not supposed to be here anymore. It's not supposed to breathe anymore. That's how God planned it. But Caucasians will go out there and try to save animals. And while they're saving the animal, they're interfering with the ecology. And they're wondering why all this other stuff is happening here. When it's your time to go, it's your time to go. The last strain on all existing animals is the bleach gene. I know some of y'all might want to lie. I ain't gonna let y'all lie. I know all y'all have seen rats. And I don't just mean on television. Come on, y'all now. Y'all have seen rats in the house run across the floor. You have never seen a white rat run across your living room floor. No, you didn't. You haven't never seen a white deer running across your yard. You ain't seen a white snake until recently. There wasn't no white lions. And every time they get a white snake, they go, look, a white snake. And they show that white snake in every movie they can. When they get a white lion, they take them to Las Vegas and show everybody, look, a white lion. Correct? And when a white buffalo was born a couple of years ago, all the Native Americans said, ho-ho, a white buffalo, a special symbol. So it was special for a white thing to be born out of species that were naturally brown, gray, and dark colors. He was unique because he didn't belong there. That's the only reason why the white lion is so important. Because when you see a white lion, you say, lions are not their color. Where did you come from? And they'll prove to you that that is a defective chromosome, an albino gene. You with me? Well, talk to me about something important. Yes.
Rabbi, first of all, I want to say how glad I am to be in your presence.
It's my pleasure for you to be here.
And secondly, I have two questions. One question is, I recently lost my mother. We buried her 3 weeks ago, this Saturday, today. And I experienced a horrific scene with her. She died of cancer. And I wondered why I had to actually be there and see her go through this till her last breath. Secondly, since I've become a member of the Holy Tab in the Order, I'm having problems sleeping at night, and I've tried different things to try to build up my psychic self-defense.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that it's working, and I wondered what this was that was bothering me. It's like a hot thing or something that hovers over or tries to touch me. I don't know what that is.
Okay.
So I said, if I ever was in your presence,
You'll
I was
ask
going
those
to ask
two.
you that. Yes.
That's something I talk about all the time. I talk to people about death, funerals, coffins, because they have a system in this society where they want you to remember the people you love in their worst state. That's why they set up hospitals, which doesn't have nothing to do, as I said many times, with curing, but just being hospitable. They want you to see the person. I'm going to tell you something. If you can remember anyone in your family that's passed, that you didn't see dead, you'll remember them alive. And they will live alive in you forever. In our culture, in ancient Tamare, Egypt, once the person died, as they call it, they had an embalming ceremony where the relatives and the friends never saw the person until the whole ritual was over. And the next time they saw them, they saw a gold, bronze, copper, or wood, depending on how rich they was, replica of them, as beautiful and more lustrous as the great sun Ra that we worshipped. You understand what I'm saying? So they never saw them dead in order for them to leave that impression in your mind, that period of regression. Now each stage of that stays with you and haunts you. You follow what I'm saying? But you have got to. You've got to step over that and go back to when she was healthy. You got to get in there. Don't cut me off there. I heard you cut me off. Don't cut me off inside. You got to go back there and you got to remember incidents. You got to have a treasure chest of things in your life that you had with your mother, very special things that makes you remember her embracing you or giving you that first doll or something on Christmas or something that was special when you fell, and get that picture and meditate on that image over and over again. Every time your other image comes to your mind, you ride over it with that new image, so you replace it in your subconscious mind. Eventually the other image will fade away and all you remember is the good, and you see her standing there and you would have resurrected her to live eternally in your heart. You hear me? Now, as far as things haunting you in your sleep, what a lot of people don't understand is disembodied souls roam this planet because they're trapped here because they were too material. And when they passed, they couldn't get out. And they have to stay here until they fuse out. And they use people's life. And they keep channeling through people. And this is how they prolong their stay on this plane. Right? Oftentimes we go into a state referred to as sleep paralysis, when we're very rested but we can't go directly into slumber. So we go into a semi-slumber state. We think we're awoke, but we are paralyzed and conscious. And this is the best avenue, or best plane from which these beings can touch you. You follow? And what defends you is a serum in your body called adrenaline. It repels them because it blocks the blood. Because when the person becomes afraid, their body goes into a defense. And the white corpuscles, white blood cells, and red blood cells get ready to defend the body. And it calls on the telephone and speaks to the inner chamber of the blood and says, hemoglobin, call the plasma and tell them to get ready. I'm serious. And it takes a message, and this is the nerve system, which has a link to the brain that has its own intelligence center, sending all these messages that something is about to happen. The first thing it does is it sends up a serum that shoots into the dermis, just above the epidermis, the lowest layer of skin, and it creates little bumps on the body. That's called fear bumps. They raise. They are creating a defense or a cushion against an attack. We're not as strong as we were when we keloided. So we create this little, and the hair sits up. This is a defense mechanism that human beings have in them. But if something is strong enough to penetrate the skin, then the message is, go there and knit that back together. And the white corpuscles race against the red corpuscles. The red corpuscles are full of breath, so they move faster. So you bleed first. And then the white corpuscles get around, form pus, form a clot called a scab, from the hemoglobin, the oxygen, and then the plasma, and it starts to knit you up. You follow what I'm saying? There's a link between you and that blood, and those disembodied souls who can get to the blood to breathe. That's why they try to possess people, for the blood. That's why in all their spooky movies, Dracula wants the blood. In all the Satanic so-called churches, it's always a blood sacrifice. In the ancient scriptures, they're cutting up goats and giving blood. And God smells the sweet savor of the burning offering, the blood on the altar. These disembodied souls feel connected to the blood. You hear what I'm saying? So when you go into that state of sleep paralysis, beings are trying to get you. Has nothing whatsoever to do with joining, other than the fact that you probably said, this happened when I started joining. And he goes, yeah, that's when it started happening. It starts creating, it becomes a reality. You're looking for a solution so that you can get rid of it. If you go back to when it started happening, trace who you came in contact with, did you move rooms, did you change the direction you sleep in, anything, start putting the pieces together, you'll see where it really came in at. Beings are trying to get to you. Now here's the best part about it. If they could, they would have. If they could have gotten you, they would have done it by now. They're waiting for you to get weaker and weaker. And by not sleeping, your body becomes weaker and weaker. And your resistance gets weaker and weaker. And they think they can pounce down then. You follow what I'm saying? But they can't. Unless you let them in. That's why they tell you Dracula can't get in the house unless you invite him. In every movie. See, they can't get in unless you invite them. And they're trying to weaken you through fear of the unknown, the lack of sleep, until you say, something help me. Anybody help me. And they'll knock right on that door and walk in. Overcome them. Stay up until you fall out. And you'll be asleep. In other words, don't go to bed. I'm not going to bed. You understand what I'm saying? Let me go another way for you. There's another avenue here. This is another whole channel of people who they can't sleep. There's a fluorescent light. It's called daylight. What might be happening also is your body rhythms might be out. In other words, there are people that are night people. And they stay up at night and they sleep in the day. There's a solution to that. They have to take and put on a day light in a room with them during the night, until they can transform the night till the day. And then their body rhythm will change. People who take on night jobs and stuff like that eventually train their body to stay up at night. You understand what I'm saying? There's lights you can buy, a fluorescent light, not incandescent, fluorescent light, that's daylight. And you train yourself by sitting in front of that light. And even though it's night, it'll appear day to you. And eventually your body rhythms will start to change. That's another approach, because I can't tell you which one it is. It could either be bad sleeping habits, or it can be beings trying to weaken you. I'd like to lean on the second. You follow what I'm saying? What was you going to say?
I was just saying that, you know, with us staying up all out, staying up till she fall out, that I have to stay up with her, and that puts a strain on me.
It's like I'm not asleep. It's like this time it's like something is like, you know, I can feel it.
That's sleep paralysis then you're in a state of sleep. She's in a state of sleep paralysis. That's all it is. It's a form of being asleep and awoke at the same time. You're caught in between, right? You may have to put yourself through that stress because you love her. You're right? Enough days for her to catch her rhythm again. That's what love is about. It's about sacrifice. You may have to. I know you got to go to work, but you may have to take that strain and hard work and yarn to get her system back in place. I mean, that's not too hard to do, is it? But let's do it. If you want to investigate, but look up sleep paralysis. Read up on sleep paralysis. All right? Yes.
I wanted to ask you about 9999. Is that got something to do with the Y2K, or is there something going to happen on that?
9999 is really a mathematical figure, 9 to the 9th power of 9. But when we write it out, people usually say 999. It's 9 to the 9th power of 9. That's the largest figure that you can calculate, because the highest number is 9. Anything else, any numbers above 9 are compound numbers. meaning 11 is a compound of two ones. 12 is a compound of a 1 and 2. They're not numbers. They're compound figures. So 9 is the highest number. We have two figures of death and destruction that pertains to the beast, and his was 6666. That was when last time the devil came into power on earth. And that was up in 72nd Street when he incarnated through Pope Paul VI, PP6. A P is an inverted 6. You follow that? And then we have our own 999, ninth month, ninth day of 1999, which was the end of the devil's rule. Those two figures are there. In Freemasonry, they hide behind the sacred number of the sacred names of Ra and say he has 69 names. You follow what I'm saying? That 69 names is symbolic of 6 and 9. 6 ether, 9 ether. 9 ether in death becomes ghost in 6 ether. 6 ether in death becomes nothingness. When Caucasians die, unless they are given a soul, like it says, he restoreth my soul. So you can have your soul removed and you can have your soul restored. Unless their soul is restored, they dissipate into nothingness. You follow? That's what happens with 6 ether, inverted 9.
Okay, Bob. I got 3 questions. All right.
Yeah, 4. The first one was a question.
Oh, okay. I was listening to a tape, and I heard you say something about a red and blue star coming together, and I didn't know what that represented. That's one question. Another one is I was noticing that we dealing a lot with like microorganisms and stuff like that, in the books, and I'm trying to figure out, that's kind of a little bit different from some of the things that we usually did. And another,
who usually did?
or that I usually read in our
back in
doctrine.
our old books, there's a book called Science of Creation. I was breaking down microorganisms back in 1970.
Okay.
So it's not new to me. It's new, young readers are just catching up with it. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of things I'm teaching today, I taught back. I wrote books back in 1967 under Amanubi Rakata. It's on archives in Washington. People didn't even know I wrote them about Egypt back then. Yeah.
Okay, and the last one was I was just doing, from my old books, I just went back and I was studying them, over again, and I noticed like a pattern with some of the doctrine. It was like I noticed that like the number 46 was coming up over and over again, like the 46 people with Tammuz that did plagiarization,
chromosomes,
that like that.
46 dynasties.
Yeah. I was trying to figure out.
That's an Egyptian figure.
I mean, I'm just, is it more to that? Those 3
yes.
questions is more?
No, not more to the words, it's more to the number. Egyptians were in numerology.
Okay.
46 is really not 46 in Egyptian, it's 4 and 6. And 4 represented the 4 elements: earth, water, and fire.
Okay.
Or wind and fire. And 6 represented the mark of Apapis. Apapis was the Egyptian way of saying Satan.
Okay.
Right? And that was his mark of identity in time. And his cycles worked in 6s. Our cycles work in 9. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But 4 was the marking point of the universe, the 4 corners of the universe, and they represent the 4 elements that we identify with as incarnated beings. So that each number you read in Egypt, when you see a number like 72, you say 7 and 2. And you look into the Egyptian mysteries as to what deities moved in 2, and you come up with Osiris or Asadu and Asit or Isis. And you say, okay, what deities moved in 5s? And you get the names of the 5 deities. What deities moved in 6? And you'll see a pattern there in the Egyptian mysteries. They tell a story about us.
Okay.
You follow? Which will be explained thoroughly in the order. There's a new order in existence now. Breaks down all the secret mysteries. Go ahead.
The red and blue star?
Right. You look to the north when Venus comes into play, and you'll see a red star beside it.
Okay.
When Venus comes close, it's bluish green. Right? Those are signs of alignment.
Okay.
Alignment that I didn't come up with. I must say that because these people are giving me the credit of being the person who used May 5th, 2000 as the alignment. And I didn't come up with that. Someone else was talking. There's a book out called May 5th, 2000 that I did not write. But they don't want to say a white man wrote it, because in case it don't happen, they'll say I wrote it. But now that the alignment 4 of the planets, or 5 now, are lined up, now they're starting to put it in all the newspapers. And they don't want to say I had nothing to do with it no more.
I just have two questions. One, the sister down there was speaking about as far as dreams were concerned. I never used to like remember my dreams, but I seem to be having redundant dreams of me and my son just running away like every other night, and I just want to ask that.
First of all, there's a variety of different kind of dreams that people have. Some dreams are visions, right? Some dreams are messages. There's a difference between a vision and a message, because the message is for you and the vision is of something that's going to affect more than you. Some dreams are fears. Some dreams are movies that you write and design to hide and shelter other things that you are afraid of. Reoccurring dreams, as people call, because remember, dreams is a sister to death. There's a link between dreaming and dying. The same thing happens when you. It's strange. Y'all ask me sometimes questions that I was talking about all afternoon. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a dream that was real, that felt real? If you didn't wake up, how would you know that it was a dream? If you can't answer that, then how do you know this is not the dream? And you're waiting to wake up. Okay, by pinching yourself. You've never pinched yourself in a dream yet and got a reaction. Pinch yourself to make sure this ain't the dream. Okay? Now, what I'm reaching at is, reoccurring events are like a film that keeps, or record that keeps skipping. It's not solving itself. And that's why it's reoccurring. You've got to analyze it, find out in it the things that you added or coded in your dream, so that you can dissect it and get to the root of it. And then, and only then, will it go away. Until you do that, it's going to keep reoccurring. It's a chip record in your life of time. Some event has stamped itself in your mind, in your subconscious mind, and you are preventing it from dissipating. You're not trying to solve it. In other words, and it'll just keep on tumbling until you go back, analyze the dream, each incident, each person, and see which people you might be replacing. Because oftentimes in dreams we replace people with people we want it to be, or people we don't want it to be, with another person's actions. The environment I'm in, was I ever there? When was I there? What led to me being there? You know what I'm saying? Is it a heartbreak situation? Is it a desertion thing? Was I deserted from a guy I love at that certain point, at a certain place? And I reflected, because around the corner was a store I used to go to. So now I dream around the corner, but my mind is really on this side. But I don't want to be on this side, because that's where I was hurt. So I moved the dream to another place, and I replace his face with somebody I'm now with. And I do this, you know what I'm saying? And that's how well the mind has been knitted to protect you against insanity. By the time a person goes insane, they're supposed to go insane. Because the brain is set up in a way that it will protect you against insanity. So you have to take that dream and write it down on paper and look at it and dissect it as the place, the people involved. Then look back at yourself. How am I dressed? Why am I dressed this way? Who is in the dream with me? Why are they in the dream? Is it a kid or is it an adult? What are we doing? Walking? Are we running? Are we driving? Whose car are we in? Why that car? Are we driving too fast? Then you might remember driving with a person in the car that was driving too fast, who had too much authority, and you didn't want to say nothing, but you felt afraid. You stored that fear in your subconscious mind, and it waited for the rest of a puzzle that can project itself. It wasn't enough to portray itself, so it stays in the subconscious mind. And then another incident happens where someone raised their hand at you, right, and almost hit you, and you duck, right, and that stores itself. Later on, you're in a vehicle and somebody swings their hand at you in a dream. You've taken these two incidents and made them one. To rid yourself of it. All dreams is trying to do is keep you from storing waste information. So you dream it out of your existence. You follow? Because every time you dream, if you sit back and analyze it right, you'll find out it relates to things taking place in your life at the moment. Within that last 72 hours, if you really add them up right. You follow?